Hello?
What's up, Josh?
Oh, hey, Jake.
How you doing?
Doing good. Yeah. Got back from the eco camp with Andres and Mike. And then we did a session this morning. Andres is doing his private group classes, all eco style, CLA or whatever. So yeah, a lot of jujitsu on the mind.
Very cool. How's the camp? I know we're gonna dive deeper with Mike and Andres, but yeah, just curious to get your initial thoughts on it.
Yeah, camp was super cool. I like wrote down a couple things I wanted to get out of it beforehand, and it was like good training, connecting with cool people. And then I wanted to just learn more about constraints. Like what
Mm.
kinds of constraints do you play with? Like just get a better understanding of it. And yeah, the camp delivered on all of those. And got a lot of people who are interested to come on the podcast too. So I may interview them on my own, or if you're free, we can both hop on. But we have Aaron, who's he's like the eco submission grappling eco Discord guy who started
Gotcha.
it. He used to be a moderator on the Reddit BJJ page, and he was like, "Nah, I can't do this anymore."
Yeah, that's a
So
tough job.
yeah, it should be interesting to hear from him.
That's funny.
Pat, who hosted it at 10th Planet, he's down to come on the podcast, and then yeah, we'll have Andres and Mike next week to kind of debrief all our learning. So yeah, that's all, like all the cool connections. The training was awesome. We trained like 3-4 times a day. It was a lot. We didn't eat out that much during the day because it was like so much back to back training, and everyone's backs were hurting. Like after Q&A, you're just sitting there on the mats and see people get up and all like holding their backs. And then they did workshops too. So they would have coaches or even regular people split off on the groups. You create games, people give you feedback, you iterate them, you try them, you share what you're learning. So yeah, it was really cool. Um,
What game did you make during the workshop?
yeah, so I tried to make games that I've never seen before just to like get the most out of the exercise. And Greg was talking, we were asking Greg about foot sweeps and stuff in like judo. And he mentioned one task is like you can start standing, maybe overhook, underhook situation. And your job is to keep your foot attached to their foot as long as you can. And just
Hmm.
like hold and then go back and forth. Like, can I put my foot on your foot? Can you put your foot on like my ankle area? And we're hopping around trying to maintain that position.
Hmm.
So I started with that, and I made a terrible game. It was so bad. And they gave me feedback, and we just started messing around from there. I think my game was like, all right, you're gonna start overhook, underhook, and your foot is on their like side of their foot, like their ankle, and
The
you lift
inside or outside?
whichever one you wanted,
Okay.
and you
Hmm.
lift it so off the ground, almost like you're about to foot sweep them. And then your job is just to maintain that. But then they would just like hook their foot out and go back to the ground. And it start all over. It was like a mess. And you can see it immediately. Like you make your game and you look around, you're like, oh shit, this one's really bad.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. That's the way it goes. You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah. Then we had to do a guarded game and then we had to do a pinning game. So it was a long exercise. But yeah, that was the camp at a high level, and then we'll jump into a lot more specifics next week. We'll probably have you play moderator, and then me and Mike and Andres will be kind of like a panel of like all our learnings and stuff. If
Very
that's
cool.
cool with you.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. It's kind of unfortunate that Joseph's seminar in San Diego is the same
I
classes as well.
know. Mike was saying the same thing. We're like, dang, would have been cool to see his passing stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is. But yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunate
Camp
timing.
weekend. hmm But yeah, I think I'd go back to the eco camp next year. It was really cool.
Yeah, very cool. Who were all the instructors there?
Oh yeah, so Aaron, shoot, I forgot his last name, but he's the creator of the
Yeah,
Discord. So he taught class. Greg taught a lot. I think Greg taught twice every day.
dang.
Rob
Mhm.
Cole taught once or twice a day, and then Pat did a lot of the workshops, like the
Gotcha.
yeah group exercises and stuff. And then
Cool.
Denise taught as well. She's been in education and teaching for a long time, so
Mhm.
she brought an interesting perspective on that. She had us play a game where like they put us in the CLA games and she gave us a constraint of only nasal breathing and the whole room just slowed down. It was just like I've never seen that constraint before of only breathing through the nose. I feel like that could be a great warm up constraint. Like, hey, here's a game, but you only breathe through your nose. And I've never seen the whole room just shift to like exploratory playing around just with that single constraint. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, I forget. I was literally just talking to someone and they were talking about ways of constraining to dial down intensity. And that's one thing that they said was you weren't allowed to breathe through the mouth. I forget who it was. Dang it. Wish I could shout them out. But yeah, it's interesting. I never thought about constraining like the breathing to try and modify like or control intensity, you know? It's an interesting variable.
Super interesting because there's like DEMA's like high heart rate, medium, low. But I feel like having a constraint of nasal breathing forces people into that versus like arbitrarily trying to like be low heart rate or whatever.
Yeah.
So just an interesting way to go about controlling for that.
Right. Yeah. Very
Um,
cool.
Dang it, there's so many other things. I think I'll hold most of them except Rob Cole. I'll just say that he was doing a lot of folk style wrestling stuff, and
Mm,
the main constraint that was present through all the games was you're not allowed to connect your hands because I think that's a rule in folk style wrestling.
right. Right.
So it just forces so many other things, attacking the ankles and like scrambling to come up on top, that spiral ride stuff, half Nelson stuff. Super, I had to start in all kinds of crazy positions for scramble opportunities.
Mm.
Goal was just get on top, stay on top, like ride the people out. And it was an aspect of jujitsu that I think, yeah, we don't play a lot, I guess, in normal class or open rounds. So
So it's more of just like maintenance type stuff.
yeah, a lot of
Right.
control. Yeah.
I see. Right on.
Yeah, yeah, he did a whole like shin ride, splitting the legs, like the Craig Jones power pin stuff, and he had a great line. He was like, "You don't score any points for this, but these are points for the soul, because you're just
That's funny.
killing the other guy, and you don't score any points because you're technically not past the legs, but they are just struggling down there."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Like just watching wrestling, the people who are really good at that. Like, I think a lot of people, when they start in the referee position, they just like the defender like stands up and disengages and then they get 1 point for escaping. But the people who are really good just wear down the person so much from that position, you know?
so
So,
much.
yeah.
Yeah, you're like spiral ride and grab the ankle and like drive them into the ground. You're like grabbing their wrist and pinning it to their shoulders and just hipping in. And there just feels like you're getting grinded into the mat by someone.
Right.
Can't get up.
Very
It's
cool.
terrible.
This might be a good actual segue into this. I made a little folder as I've been watching matches to share with you. And maybe we start from the bottom because I think this has something. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I've been messing with this because I saw it in this match. But basically, from like side control,
Mm.
he takes this like over grip on the leg.
Yeah.
Yeah. This grip, obviously, you got to watch out for like triangles and stuff. But he takes this grip and then he moves towards, yeah, you can see he shelves the leg here and then just
Oh my God.
like very interesting ways to ride the legs that I haven't seen in jiu-jitsu, you know?
Yeah.
I thought that was quite cool. Obviously there's like triangle threats and stuff you got to worry about, but yeah, I've used this a few times and I try and be nice about it, but it's really good if you can get it.
It looks brutal.
Yeah.
Actually, a quick pause on that, just to mention. So Rob's games, oh man, I don't want to go into too much. We'll go more detail next week, but he had our focus of attention was like harassing the feet and ankles. And
Mhm.
it's like he basically showed us through experiencing that if you have their feet and ankles up, their hips are going to be driven down. Like it's just
Right.
part of the equation. So he had us recognize that in a lot of scrambling positions, just harassing the ankles. And that is a crazy way to do it.
Yeah. I just was watching Luke Griffith. I think a lot of wrestlers do it too. Um, just makes sense why he's teaching it. But you can see like from Turtle Luke grabs the far ankle here and is kind of pulling weight forward, and then uses that to kind of tip him over. There's just like different ways of yeah, like grabbing the ankle to drive weight like forward onto their hands. Um, see if I can find another example.
Yeah. Oh man, look at him like, is that kind of like a Turk on the leg?
Yeah. And I think like the idea is like dude's trying to stand up. So he picks up the ankle to make sure this hand is on the mat. And then once that hand is stationary, he switches his attention to breaking down that hand, you know?
Dude, so
It's,
good.
it's, it's very, yeah, people are really good at this.
Yeah.
Um,
I think a lot of jujitsu guys like miss these opportunities because they're just trying to get hooks in like a seatbelt, or they're so fixated on that, maybe that seatbelt or whatever.
right. Yeah. Having the limitation of not being able to connect your hands does make you think about other ways to use your hands, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's quite interesting. Um, This one was from the front headlock. The thing that's been giving me a lot of trouble is when the defender takes a 2-on-1 grip on your strangle arm. It's kind of hard to deal with. So I thought this was quite interesting. He basically just like gives a big shuck and then reaches for a single leg with this leg. Yeah, exactly. And then he goes around for a rear double leg. But that shuck to like misdirection, and then you use your other hand to like come under and reach for the single leg. I like it a lot. And
Wow.
I didn't have a really good solution for that 2-on-1 grip, but I like this. And I've had decent success with it so far.
Oh, that's really cool. Today we were playing front headlock and turtle games with Andres, and yeah, when defended that front headlock, I felt like pretty strong when you have that 2-on-1 on the strangle arm, and then you can start to like circle out or make space, and they
Yep.
can't really like control you from there. But in that example you showed, it's almost like they get a 2-on-1 on your strangle arm, and it's kind of like that limp arm almost like motion,
Mm.
or is that kind of what's
I
happening?
think it's at least when I'm doing it, I focus more on like just trying to push my bicep into their ear, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like you push your bicep into their ear to get them going that way, and then you're coming like underneath your arm with your other hand to reach for their single leg.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I've tried to focus on, less of like a limp arm, more of like just driving them the other way as you're kind of misdirecting and going behind them.
Wow. Super cool.
Yeah, I like it. Speaking of seatbelt, I thought this might be helpful for you to see, but so Keith, I think, does this quite a bit. He takes his seatbelt, and dude has, this foot on the mat here.
Mhm.
So Keith's going to break him down over the far hip. So he tries to throw in his far hook, but basically with the goal of breaking him down. And then he gets his other hook in. And now basically the battle is whether he can get this foot across to the far hip to make it a long hook.
Yeah.
And you can see he does that here, gets a long hook, and then now he takes the back. But he, I think, really banks on the seatbelt, and then he like whatever knee you're on, like sometimes he goes near hook and just kind of sits down, and sometimes he goes far hook like we just saw here and rolls to the far side. But it just kind of depends on where the person's weight is, and then you just pick one and you try and like throw your hook into that side, but break them down. And then it usually ends up in a situation where you have one hook trying to chase the back, and then you're just trying to make that long and then take the back. But yeah, seems to be a very effective strategy for Keith when
Well,
he's taking the back from Turtle.
I hadn't thought about making a long hook with just one hook in.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that was really cool.
So you can see it starts on the same leg, like they call this a short hook,
Yeah.
where it's hooking the same leg. And then when it goes all the way to the far hip, they call that a long hook. So you would say he switches his top hook from a short hook to a long hook to take the back.
Dang, that's
Yeah.
nice. For
That
people,
basically prevents their hip from keeping like going to the mat,
right. For people just listening, so let's say you have someone's back and you only have your top hook in. He's saying use that shallow hook, you extend all the way across, almost like you're going to lock a bottom side body triangle, and then assist that bottom hook to come up. And then Keith actually transitioned it into a top side body triangle, which is like beautiful to see. Super.
Right. And then kind of off topic, unless you have another follow-up question, but I've started messing around with this last night and I love it. Luke you know what twister side control is?
No,
Okay.
sounds
So
terrible.
normal, like it's a 10th planet name for it. I don't know if there's another name for it, but like basically you take your hips face their hips from like a side control situation. But normally for like a standard twister side control, uh, his hips would be underneath the arm. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So need to stop saying that. Does that make sense? But Luke sets it up from north south. So he goes north south. He gets this reverse underhook on this side, and then he switches his hips. So this arm, instead of being like behind Luke here, it's in front of him. And then he basically plays this dilemma of trying to bring this hand underneath. And if he's able to get it underneath, he starts driving the arm across the center line
Yeah.
to set up like kimuras and stuff. And I think in this example, so yeah, you could see him. He's trying to get under, to drive it across. Dude's resisting a lot, gets his arm back. But now when Luke steps over to mount, his hips naturally drive the arm across the body. So now there's back exposure. And then he does that modified chair sit where you don't switch hips when you're doing the chair sit. You basically just sit and then your bottom hook slides in and then you take the back. But I thought like this has been awesome. I've been messing around with it for one day, but the only thing I've kind of experienced is people bridge very aggressively in this direction, and like I got tipped over a couple times in this direction,
Yeah.
to the side of your reverse underhook. But after experiencing that, I really started like gripping the mat with my feet and trying to like pull my hip down this way, to make it hard for him to bridge me over in that direction. And then when they chill, that's when I start using this hand to like try and get under their arm, or just step over directly to mount and then take their back. But this has been very nice. Again, I'm new to it. I just saw it the other day, but yeah, Luke seemed to use this position like 5 times during this roll, and it seemed like a very deliberate strategy on his part. So I'm interested to see if he does it in W&O coming up. But yeah, I really like it.
Damn, that's crazy, dude. How do you keep all these like in your head? It's just there's so many possibilities that can happen in these crazy nuanced positions.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's all the same ideas, right? Like you're trying to extend arms out in a way or get them across the center, and then you just like have different strategies of doing it. But I just rewind it a bit so you can see the setup. But basically, what I'm saying is you get to north south, and then you get one arm inside, and then you just switch your hips like this, and then you end up playing from here. Um, and yeah, I thought it was I really like it as a way to start getting arms extended from like side control north south situations.
Yeah, that's the concept I didn't see. So I'm glad you highlighted that when you're pinning from the top, then you go into the isolation process of getting the elbows out or across their body to
Right.
put them in a more compromised position. And it looks like Luke was doing that instead of directly with his hands, using like his body and angles to just like get the arms across.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times from side control, from like a static side control, it can be difficult to start peeling arms out in a way. Um, so yeah, yesterday I was just playing a lot with, as soon as I got the side control, I would just start using movement and trying to work around towards north south, but just with the goal of getting one elbow inside as that reverse underhook, and then immediately switch hips and then start attacking that second arm. Um, yeah, I thought it was great. A couple times, like I said, I got rolled, but I think I'm starting to get like a better feel of the position, how to make yourself a bit more heavier on their near shoulder to make it hard for them to roll you in, like over their far shoulder. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's cool. I saw some more guys are coming to the classes lately, it seems.
Oh, we had yesterday we had 11 people.
Whoa,
Yeah,
what's going on? People are there's a resurgence in jiu-jitsu on the island.
I guess so. Yeah. I think a lot of people over the past year or two have had kids, and now they might be starting to get to an age where they can more easily leave them with the grandparents kind of thing and come. So yeah, it's been really nice for sure. Um, yeah, it was like too many people on the mat, kind of thing. So it was a good problem to have.
That's crazy because it was like what, 3, 4 people for a while, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yesterday was 11. It was,
Is that a record?
I think so.
Damn, that's cool.
Yeah.
Man, Mike and I need to plan a hunting trip out there and do the whole thing again. Maybe we'll go hunt with you guys in Lanai and then do some jiu-jitsu or something.
Yep. That'd
Maybe
be
this
fun.
summer or something like that. Yeah,
We'll be here.
that'd be fun. Um, I was curious about your thoughts on the Greg's leg entanglement video that he posted recently.
Mm, I really like it. Yeah, what were your initial thoughts? I was actually making a video about leg entanglements, and it just fit perfectly into what I was talking about. So, yeah, I think kind of like our conversation with Greg. Um, I basically had ideas; they weren't as clear as I would have liked them to be, and then hearing Greg talk about it, I think made it more clear. So, yeah, it was great timing for him to put out that video.
Yeah, super cool. The I've heard him talk a lot before about, getting inside position as it leads to like access to the hips and getting the heels higher and stuff like that for entering the legs. But I hadn't heard him talk about that cross body
Mhm.
position. Um, Man, this is going to be hard to describe on a podcast. I'll link the Greg video in the description of the episode so you can like do a deeper dive on it. But man, how would you describe that cross body position for people listening?
It would basically just be like from a standard single leg X, the leg is never crossing your body. And basically the theme of what he's talking about is as if the, should I just show the, yeah, I'll just show this real quick.
Yeah.
So I'm working on this, this short, but it's basically a short for like a longer video that I'm making. But basically like for a single leg, if the leg is on the outside hip, it never crosses your center. It's not easy to navigate like that, so I'll just stay like this. If it never crosses the center, then basically to get to their secondary leg, you have to go in front of them normally
Mhm.
as your primary route. But then, like the way this relates to leg entanglements is from a position like X guard, which is basically what Greg was in that double seated position where you have that like short hook on the near leg and then a long hook. It's basically X guard, but you have um, a short hook
Mhm.
on the near leg. And when that's the case, in order to get to the secondary leg, you're probably going to have to work in front of your opponent to reach their secondary leg. And if the opposite is true and you're able to bring their leg across your body, then you can access their secondary leg by going behind them to get to a rear double leg. And then this is Greg talking about it. So, yeah, basically you pass the leg over your body and he gives the example of DeAndre, how DeAndre passes the leg over to his inside hip, and then that gives him the ability to go behind his opponent to access the secondary leg. So the overall theme, I think, is getting to your opponent's secondary leg is important for keeping their hips grounded and managing leg entanglements in a controlled manner. And the route to get to the secondary leg tends to be different, whether it's in a straight hip situation or a cross hip situation. And that's basically what Greg was talking about.
Yeah, and then with the cross hip situation, like let's say for people listening only, if you're double seated and then you enter that single leg X or it's called a remiashi.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that standard entanglement, and then you take that leg, in that Achilles grip, the leg straight, but then you take it out of that your armpit and pass it to the other armpit. Now the leg's like going across your body. And one thing that stood out to me from that Greg video was in that cross leg position, the access to the hips is right there. So being able to play with like staying in the entanglement or just standing up, and then now you're kind of outside, almost leg draggy like position, and you can just slide right into accessing the hips with your arms. So I'll try to describe the game that Andres did with us this morning. It was super. It highlighted this dynamic really well. So we would start in shit, man, this is hard to describe. We would start in double seated, and you have their foot in that Rimiashi kind of like situation, but instead of you fully in single leg X, you have like a little baby hook with your left leg, let's say, and then your other foot is just inside
Mhm.
under their knee, and you start in this position. And the goal for the attacker was basically to maintain inside position here. And then the defender's goal was to try to stand up with the foot inside,
Mhm.
kind of in like a split squat or like, yeah, in a passing situation with one foot inside. And then so as the attacker, it was super interesting to play with inside position versus cross leg position and standing up versus sitting back down at inside position and knowing when it was safe to like sit down and like you have their legs in a certain way where you know they're not going to be able to get up. So it's safe for you to just sit down and then stand up at your will.
Did you
Yeah.
find it was easier to keep them down from a straight situation or a cross
I
situation?
like the cross situation for some reason. It's probably because I'm not as good yet at keeping people on their hips from the straight situation. Maybe I need to be better about having the secondary leg. Probably the main issue I'm dealing with the straight situation. But I felt like with the cross situation, it was easy. If they tried to get up, you could just build a little height and like, I don't know, their hips were down and you could start pressuring and it's passing. But
Mm.
yeah, it was weird. I'm not doing a great job explaining it, maybe because it's like my first exposure to this type of dynamic.
That game, I think the same game Greg explains in
Oh, he
the
did.
video. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll link all that. Basically, all this to say, go watch the video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Yep. And he kind of links it with guard passing too. Yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
when you do a leg drag, you're going to be able to basically the same as like the leg across position, or the cross hip position is what he calls it. And now you have better access to their hips and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the principle applies to a lot of positions. I imagine there are some that we're not seeing now, but the two that he highlighted in that video were like guard passing and leg entanglements.
Yeah, and it's cool that you're also exploring it from the single leg position in your next video.
Yeah.
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 When's
That's
that
going to be my next video, but
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. How many do you have in the hopper now?
I think there's probably 2 that are going to come out before that.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. The injuries one was interesting.
Yeah, it is quite interesting, huh? I think there's a lot of potential like blind spots in it, like, there's a lot of white and blue belts. So like obviously leg locks are going to be less prominent in those types of divisions, especially heel hooks. So like, yeah, there's like those factors to consider, but still I thought it was pretty interesting. That arm bars were like the most common submission. And I thought it was very interesting how more likely you are to get hurt in competition than in training. Like it's like significantly more.
Yeah. Makes me nervous to compete. And then same with the weights, right? If you're on the really lighter end versus the heavier end, I think you're more likely to get injured versus
Yeah.
like that middle area. So I'm lighter, so that I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some interesting stuff for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get any Sherpa info over
Oh
there?
yeah. Actually, yeah, there's this guy Kyle. He's been an early user. He'll probably hear this on the podcast, so shout out to Kyle. But yeah, I was asking him about using the app and any feedback and stuff like that. And my big takeaway was like he hope he don't doesn't mind me sharing, but like he was like wanting to journal more, but always kind of inconsistent with it. And his biggest thing keeping him from it was remembering to do it. I think that's a common thing with new habits is like you need a cue and then link it with like the action. But him with his church group, they would meet and they would journal for like different Bible passages and stuff and have discussions and stuff like that. And I think the biggest difference there is like it's social and there's an accountability thing going on. So that was a cool takeaway of like how strong social elements can be for new behaviors.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's a cool takeaway. Yeah, I didn't talk about it as much as I wanted, but I did make sure to never pitch it to anybody. So.
That's good.
Yeah. I was listening to the mom test on the way. I got like halfway through. I was like, all right. Yeah. Don't pitch your stuff. Just go and learn.
Yeah. I think that is a very interesting insight, that trying to incorporate the social element. I was picturing the social element as more of just like a way to get organic growth in the product, like people share it with their friends kind of thing. But using the social element to build new habits is an interesting thing I didn't think about.
Yeah. I was thinking about like, because the app is basically like a ChatGPT wrapper. And I'm like, what really distinguishes it, from people just using something like ChatGPT? And I think the social element is like what will protect the app. Like if you and a coach are using it and you're sending feedback to the coach, like that is like a very unique situation versus like you just using it on your own.
Right.
Or maybe you have friends for maybe like database, someone's sending someone in a DM like, hey, dude, can we drill this if they want to drill, or can we make a game out of this or whatever, and how it's affecting like their actual practice with other people. Probably
Yeah.
make it a more sticky.
Yeah. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah. So that was cool. Yeah, we are all over the place on
I know we
today's episode.
Check-in episodes.
Check-in episodes, like the random show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the it reminds me of the conversation we had last week about trying to get behavioral feedback as quick as possible, as opposed to testimonial feedback or compliments. And yeah, based on that, I kind of outlined this potential thing we're going to try and implement, where the idea would be we ask anyone who makes an account on the site what grappling skill they're trying to work on this week. And then we basically feed that into the chatbot. And then we give them like 7 days of study material or like drills or games that they can play to develop whatever skill they're trying to develop. Um, and yeah, like I think it'll be interesting. Like I posted recently on the Discord and on my Instagram just to get some ideas of what people would say when they're prompted with this, and we can use that data as just kind of like practice when we're building this out to see how helpful it's actually going to be. Um, and then like it might take a couple weeks for us to build it out, but in the meantime, I'm basically just going through all those answers and trying to see if there's any like holes in our data where people would be looking to improve something and we don't have enough data. And I'm trying to fill in those gaps before we launch this thing. But we got like 75 answers for it. So I feel like that's a pretty good like sample to get us started to see if it's going to be useful or not before we try and implement something like that. But yeah, it would basically take like 2 weeks to implement something like that. And then if it does actually help with engagement and retention, then the idea would be like, okay, then we can build out like a proper like streak maybe feature and um, yeah, all that stuff. But it's going to be pretty bare bones at first and probably just email based kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it, dude. That's cool. Of the 75 answers, any like major common themes that people are thinking about these days?
Um,
Is it still tripod passing?
split squat passing, back retention, takedowns, double seated leg lock entries and defense, Darce and front headlock. Um,
So pretty good mix.
yeah, sweeps from knee shield half guard, attacking the back from turtle, um, open guard retention, Berimbolos while keeping my legs safe. Yeah, it's kind of all over the place. Yeah, which
Okay, nice.
yeah, it makes it hard when you're trying to launch something. You gotta cover everything.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
That's interesting. Man, maybe today I'm too ADHD, but for Berimbolos, do you think that's something everybody needs to learn, or can you just like skip that if you just don't really want to do that?
Um, I think it's quite important actually when you're like attacking and like getting to like the leg lock shootouts a bit.
Okay.
Um, I think it's quite important to be able to have that threat. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's important enough, I think, for me that I've tried to work on it. I'm not good at it yet, but yeah, I think it's totally fine if you're like, I'm gonna wait to do something like that. I wouldn't say it's like foundational, but I find it to be quite useful when you get into the like leg lock exchanges, and it's a good way to go from defense to offense when someone attacks your legs. Um, yeah, you can capitalize on them attacking your legs to take their back. So it's quite useful in that regard.
Yeah, I've heard there's this link between entering the legs and back exposure, but I haven't really played with any of that at all. Is the Berimbolo-esque, crab ride-esque stuff the main avenue to get to the back when you're defending the legs?
Usually, sometimes it can be a bit more like direct in the sense that if you threaten a heel hook and they turn, then they're exposing their back when they turn, and you basically just let go of the leg and like jump on their back. And it's probably going to end up in more of like a turtle type situation. Um, so yeah, there are more, I think, like direct routes to go. But generally, when you're attacking or defending the legs and you free your knee to escape, this leads nicely into Berimbolo, crab ride, wedging, back take type situations. So yeah, it's generally like when the knee is free, um, it tends to work well by either countering or following up with a back take.
Got it. You're saying when the defender frees their knee
Yeah.
and you're attacking instead of just trying to pull their knee back in, you go into some kind of
Yep.
world that I don't understand.
Yeah. Or when you're defending and you free your knee, instead of just ripping your leg out and disengaging, you can re-engage with a back take
Oh, and
again.
then you take their back
Yeah.
as
So you
you're
defend the
defending.
leg and then you take their back. Yeah. So it
Wow.
kind of goes both ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Since we're on this topic, okay, let's dive into this. All right. So, what is going on here when the knee is free? Is Berimbolo and crab ride stuff? Is everyone trying to attack that behind the knee pit and like I don't know, turn it a certain way or raise it a certain way to get that lower back exposure and wrap your, is that what's going the main thing going on there? Or
Generally, yeah, I would say I'm not the best at this, so yeah, keep this in mind. But generally, the idea is, yeah, you're trying to probably first create lower back exposure and then climb up to upper back exposure. And to do this, you want to create like sticky hooks so they can't just like pull them off or like straighten their leg and just kind of kick off your hook. So generally, you're going to want like your toes kind of hooking their calf area and then your knee kind of pressuring in like by their hip area or like thigh area. So you create this like push pull kind of counter pressure, and that makes your hook sticky. And generally, this is more difficult to do when you're like square to them. So generally, you're trying to like pick a shoulder and like drive their like kind of stack them a bit. So you're stacking them, which takes their lower back off the mat, and then you're trying to get usually your lower arm, like the arm that's on the bottom, you're trying to get that one like super deep. Um, and then they're probably going to be like framing you away with their other arm. And then you're trying to like grip fight that away. Like Pato does this super well. He'll like have a super deep, like tight waist grip with his bottom arm. And then he's trying to deal with the frame of the top arm. And usually he passes it to a cross grip on his bottom arm. And then now he's climbing up to take your back. So, um, generally the idea is you create like some sort of like sticky connection with your legs that can be used to stack them a bit to get your lower arm deeper. And then you have to figure out a way to fight their frame with their top arm. But yeah, it's generally hard to do from like a square stance. So like I tend to like trying to build up to like a shoulder and like really try and drive into them and stack them a bit.
mm,
Yeah, to get their knees kind of facing, away and kind of over their head a bit.
whoa.
It's it's hard. And like when it gets slippery, a lot of times like the hooks kind of slip off and then now you end up like just basically like giving them your leg back. Um so it does have its risks for sure. But the people who are really good at it make me want to get better at it because it looks so cool.
Yeah, I think when we came out to visit last year, you were in your like crab ride Berimbolo-ish study phase.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what made you want to study it? Because like I don't know, maybe for me too much of a beginner, but also it just feels so complex that I'm like, I'm just not gonna deal with this till later. But what made you want to jump in?
It was mostly because I think this was around the time Levi was kind of bursting onto the scene. So he kind of popularized it a bit. But also people aren't the best at leg locks at my school. So I just wanted to develop some sort of like attack off of leg locks that wasn't leg attacks. So it would be basically like, how do I kind of follow up with this into some sort of more traditional attack, like a back take? So yeah, it was just kind of exploring other options kind of from leg entanglements. So I didn't have to heel hook people over and over again. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense because you could just heel hook everybody if you wanted to. So would you
Right.
just kind of enter it and then let them escape and then try to transition into these back takes?
Yeah. Or like you could enter it and instead of letting them escape, you kind of push their foot up a bit, which exposes like behind their leg for your crab hook to come in. So yeah, it would be just like enter a leg entanglement, elevate their leg, and then try and pivot into the crab ride.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really funny when it's happening. You're like
Yeah.
upside down climbing something.
Yeah. Your face is like in their crack. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which is why my girlfriend would never do jujitsu. She just sees, she's like, dude, yeah, no, never.
Yeah. Positions like crab ride, give it a bad name for sure.
Yeah. It's so funny. Yeah, now this makes me want to just type in the database Berimbolo or crab ride or what is even the difference between a Berimbolo, a crab ride, and a wedging back take? Is this getting too nuanced and like
So I would say, yeah. So the wedge is a position. Let's see if I could find a good like picture of it. But basically, the wedge is a not a good angle. But you, I'm gonna try and find a better one. So that would be crab ride right
okay,
here, where you have like crab hooks
double
in.
hooks
Yeah,
on the back.
and then see how he passed one leg in. This would be like a twister hook. So this isn't a good example of the wedge either. But then he drops to that side. Yeah. Yeah. So now he's in the wedge. So
Oh, I see.
basically, a traditional hook, this hook right here,
Hmm.
would be hooking this leg.
Yeah,
But he has his opposite hook hooking the leg.
I
And
see.
this knee right here is kind of wedging against the hip. So now if he were to drive this foot down to the mat, I don't know if he's going to do it. Yeah, he used it to get on top. But if he were to drive that foot down to the mat, it would lift the bottom player's hips off the
Yep,
mat. So they call this the wedge. So
I
you could he went from crab ride to wedge.
got it, got it.
And basically the Berimbolo is a movement, like an inversion that you do to get to the wedge.
Oh,
So it'd be like you do a Berimbolo from De La Hiva to get to the wedge to take the back.
oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Or you go Berimbolo to get to crab ride to get to the wedge to take us back. Or you just go straight to the back from crab ride. But basically, I would take crab ride and wedge are positions. And then the Berimbolo is like a movement that you do to get into these positions.
Yeah, and is it usually an inversion?
Yeah, usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of like inverting to get play between crab ride and wedging to get back exposure.
Yes.
Damn, why do they call it Berimbolos? So complicated.
Yeah, it's a fun one for sure.
Is it more popular in the gi versus no gi?
It is because when you're doing it, so this is a good example actually. So this is from that knee breakdown De La Hiva position. So the defender rolls to the side and then he shoots this bottom leg in. So now we're in the wedge. And you can see he's trying to lift the hips off the mat to attack.
Yeah.
But this bottom arm is like reaching for here. And you can see he's framing away with this top arm. This is what I was talking about. Like Pato does such a good job of dealing with this arm because it's pushing away constantly and they're able to get really good separation and get their back down to the mat.
Yeah.
Where in the gi, you just have so many like anchors. You can like, as soon as you start to create a little bit of back exposure, you're grabbing onto their belt, you're grabbing onto their collar, you're grabbing onto something, and it makes it so much harder for them to create space.
Right.
So yeah, just like the anchor points are so much better in in the gi. But yeah, that's the basic idea behind it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow, grabbing that collar from the back seems so strong.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Um,
Dang, I did not expect to talk about Berimbolos today. I just ignored that whole topic for a long time.
yeah. Let me see if I could find a. It's not the best example, but because he already kind of threw in his top hook a bit, so it's not really crab ride, really. But you can see he's like has his foot like crossed over, and he's kind of like controlling the hips, and he's trying to climb from lower back exposure to upper back exposure.
Mhm.
But he's got this hand, his bottom arm, super deep. It's like a tight waist,
Oh.
and Fabricio's trying to frame away
Mhm.
that this arm right here.
Yeah.
So basically, Pato has this arm super deep, and he's trying to figure out a way to deal with this frame.
Oh my
And he
gosh.
feeds it. Yeah, see, he's trying to feed it. Feeds it to that cross grip, and then now he starts to climb. And then now he gets upper back exposure. He lost his hooks, but he got upper back exposure.
Right.
So
we attacked for lower back exposure.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
crazy.
that grip fight from crab ride when you're trying to go from lower back to upper back. It's hard. It's hard to do, and that's generally, I think, where it falls apart for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine this is where CLA can help a lot, where you just start in that weird ass position,
Right.
and try to finish the back take, and then the defender tries to like disengage.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to talk about. This is this is one it's kind of cool. So Joseph's attacking the legs, right? And this is what I was talking about. You can push the leg up,
Yeah,
to create space for your crab hook. So this is now his crab hook right here. And then he starts to mess around, getting into crab ride. And then, yeah, you can see him trying to deal with this frame. This arm is pretty deep around the waist, really good. And then he deals with that frame to throw in his top hook, and now he's climbing the back.
Damn, this is a great example. Yeah, we can link this one in the description, I think. If you could send it to me.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, covered quite a bit today. The title for this one's gonna be so funny. Just like all these positions.
Yeah.
But it's okay. This podcast is mainly for us anyway. So
yeah. It gets me excited about the Berimbolos crab rides. I haven't done it too much. And we've started to get better people coming back, which is nice. But the risks tend to be greater, and some of them aren't very nice when they get a hold of your leg. So trying to keep my legs a bit safer. And sometimes when the crab ride goes wrong, you just kind of give them your leg, and then they just like crank on it right away, which is kind of scary. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Damn it, this is making me want to just try it. I've never even tried it, but we'll see. Cool. Yeah, I'm excited for next week. We'll deep dive into Eco Camp, and then got a few guests coming on who are teaching or hosting the camp. So more eco stuff to come.
Yep. Sounds good. Later, Josh.
See ya.